It is the 1st of December, and we all know what that means. It's time for my November monthly wrap. Welcome or welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. Let's go! Yes, hello, and welcome or welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. I'm Mr. Francy, and I am so happy that you have chosen to join me today as we celebrate the month that was November by discussing all the books I read in the month of November. That's right. This is my November monthly wrap. And we're going to start off as we normally do by putting the monthly stats up on the screen in 3, 2, 1, go. For the month of November, I read a total of 9 books comprising of 3 cozy mysteries, 3 fantasies, 2 classics, and 1 LGBTIQ+. To my age groups, I read 3 middle grades, 2 YA, and 4 adult books. To my lengths, I read 1 tome and a half, 1 tome, 1 3/4 tomes, 2 half tomes, and 4 novellas, totaling 3,248 pages. And to my star ratings, and I had 4 5 stars, 1 4.5 star, 1 4 star, and 3 3 stars. So the first book that I read in the month of November was this book, 5 Have a Mystery to Solve by Enid Blyton. This is a middle grade classic book, and I gave this book, oh goodness me, I was more organised earlier, 3 stars. Now, I just want to premise this because since I started this channel, I have been known to read my books on my TBR in page count order, with the longest book first and the shortest one last. In case you missed my last weekly vlog, the reason I broke that this time is because the audiobooks for Famous 5 that I was listening to were suddenly no longer available. I found them somewhere else, and because of course there was always a risk that they'd be taken away from that place too, decided to jump right in because I only had 2 more books to go. So yeah, on to this one. So let's talk about the premise and my thoughts on the book. So the premise of this one is there any truth in the stories surrounding the Whispering Island? When the Famous 5 are stranded on the island, they start to investigate and find they're not the only ones. To my thoughts, it's very hard for me to be critical of the series, and indeed Enid Blyton herself, especially given that I've recently found out Enid didn't want to write all the books in this series. In saying that, part of the reason I read this book was to critique it, and I love this series overall so much that I feel I can critique when needed. Firstly, the story. Okay, so it's not word for word the exact same thing we've seen in the past, but I'd give it a good 85 to 90% on the plagiarism scale, even if Blyton is plagiarizing herself. This alone had me wanting to give the book a 2-star rating, but as I felt I'd already read it, but something clever happens with Anne that really shows her growth from book 1 to this point, and that in and of itself deserves an additional star. To unpack that just a little bit more, Anne is one of the characters we follow. If you have not read Famous 5 before, it revolves around 4 children and a dog that make up those 5. We have Julian, Dick, and Anne, and their cousin Georgina, who prefers to be called George, and George has her own dog called Timmy. Anne usually takes a back seat in these stories. She is your stereotypical girl for back in those days. You know, the whole stereotypical wife being in the kitchen and all those sorts of things. That's very much Anne. Whenever they would go camping, for example, the boys and George would set up the tent, and Anne would be the one that would cook. Anne would be the one that wouldn't always jump into certain things to do with the adventures because she's a girl and things like that. And at the start of this book, she's kind of referred to as a lamb by her older brother Julian, which I did not appreciate appreciate, because I just don't feel Anne can help who she is. But by the end of the book, Julian was referring to her as a tiger, which I loved. A lot of growth in this book alone for Anne that I really appreciated, and that's why I bumped it up to 3 stars. The next book that I read helped me to complete that series, and it's book number 21 of 21 in the Famous 5 series, and it is called 5 Are Together Again. Once again, this is a middle grade classic. I almost said mystery there. Middle grade classic, and I gave this particular one 4.5 stars. So let's take a look at the premise as well as my thoughts on this book. Reunited with Tinker, who featured in an earlier adventure, the Famous 5 are invited to camp out in a field close to his house, in which Professor Hayling, Tinker's scientist father, also lives. When a circus arrives and sets up camp, the Famous 5 are contented with the mild excitement of watching the circus folks' antics and getting to know them. But then, real commotion strikes when a towner in the grounds of Professor Hayling's house is robbed. Can the 5 track down the culprit, and what has the mystery got to do with Kirin Island? To my thoughts, reuniting with Tinker was so much fun. When George's mum says, "Do you remember Tinker?" I screamed out loud, "Yes!" so happily. I also loved that a circus was featured. It took me back to 5 Go Off in a Caravan. All in all, the book was fantastic and almost got 5 stars, but the ending felt left, as in left out. One minute we're working out who the robber is, the next minute all is well. Just finished like an unfinished editing with way too many questions. That said, the unfinishedness is only worth a 0.5 star deduction. Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed this, but there's nothing more unsatisfying than going through this mystery and then not having it be solved. So that really did confuse me, but I only could take off 0.5 stars for that because the rest of the book was so amazing. So I'm really happy I've finished this series. You can see that box set there next to the koala. And yeah, really happy to have gotten through all 21 books. It's an amazing series. If you're looking for a middle grade kind of cozy mystery series in a way, I highly recommend this one. 4.5 stars from me. So, with the Famous 5 now crossed off of my SAS list, it was time to cross another series off my SAS list. And in this case, it was book 9 of 9 in the Zodiac Academy series. It is called Restless Stars. Oh golly, I'm so sorry about the reflection there. Oh my. Here we go. And as you can see, book number 9. Oh, my word. Okay, let's just put this glossy book down. I love the glossy books. They're just really hard to show on camera. And look at the premise and my thoughts on the way that this series that I grew to absolutely love so much wrapped up. So the premise of this one is the war is on and it's time to find out who will hail as the victors in this final book in the Zodiac Academy series. So to my thoughts, wow. What a way to end this phenomenal series. Really enjoyed seeing the war play out and how it ended as well. But my highest of praise goes to Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti for their aftermath. There was just so much to soak in and it really helped to end the series in a very satisfying way. I leave this series with a bookish hangover and will miss Darius, Xavier, Caleb, Seth, and Max in particular so very much. Thank you, Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, for a fantastic series. Can't wait to journey through the prequels, and I gave this book 5 stars. Okay, yeah, so I forgot to mention earlier, but I categorize this series as an adult fantasy series. It's not technically, it's new adult, but I don't really like the category of new adult. For me, there are clear parameters with middle grade, young adult and adult. So yeah, if it's not a YA, then it's an adult book for me. That's what I categorize this as. Yeah, just to quickly delve into that a little deeper, I did absolutely find the final book in this series to be very satisfying. I am definitely going to miss this series a lot, but I have plans to not only read another series by Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti in 2025, I also am going to be making it a buddy read. So keep an eye out for my 2025 buddy reads video coming up at some point this month in December. What a way to wrap up such an amazing series. If you are a fan of the character finds out that they have magical abilities and goes to a school to learn of those magical abilities trope, then I highly recommend this series. One thing that people have said that they don't appreciate about the series, which I completely understand, is that bullying does feature in books 1 and 1.5. The bullying dramatically cuts down in book 2 and then is no longer really a factor with our main characters from book 3 onwards. So if that is something that is going to deter you, just know all of that information going in. Also, because it is an adult series, there are a lot of spicy scenes, and those spicy scenes are spicy. They are definitely 10 out of 10 spice. So if that is something that deters you, know that as well going in. But if you are okay with 10 out of 10 spicy scenes and you don't mind a bullying redemption arc in a series, then I highly recommend this series because it is absolutely fantastic. Once again, 5 stars for the final book from me. The next book that I read was a really out there decision for me because the majority of the month of November was me trying to complete series on my SAS list, but there is a series that I had been wanting to try ever since basically 2020 when I first started this channel. To be more specific, I started this channel towards the end of January of 2020, and by around, I would probably say March of 2020, I've been wanting to read this series. It has been over 5 years, nearly 6, and so I finally decided, let's grab the first book and see what we think. If I enjoy it, I'll add the remainder of the series to my 2025 SAS list, and you know what? I'm a fan. That book is called The School for Good and Evil. It is officially book number 1 in the School for Good and Evil series. I was just checking there to see if the series name was something different, but no, it's not. So it is the series, the titular title of the series is book 1, School for Good and Evil. And this book was written by Soman Chainane, or Chainani, depending on your accent and how you say that. This is a middle grade fantasy, and I gave this book 4 stars. I think the cover is absolutely beautiful, and if the idea of a place where there is both a school for good and a school for evil in one, where they can train to become what they are going to be in the best possible way, if that appeals to you, I highly recommend the book. Let's talk about the premise and my thoughts. So the premise of this one is, in the first book in the School for Good and Evil series, we meet 2 characters, Agatha and Sophie. Both are convinced they will be taken away to the School for Good and Evil that night, despite others thinking the school is a rumor. Sophie has the personality of a princess, Agatha has the personality of a villain, at least that's what they think. Why then, when their assumption is correct and they are captured, is Sophie placed into the school for evil and Agatha the school for good? Is it a mistake? So to my thoughts, honestly, when I began reading this book, I instantly thought it would become a new all-time favourite of mine. I loved the writing style, enjoyed the fantasy aspects, and absolutely loved that both good and evil were represented at this school. As the book continued on, I continued to love it. It was interesting seeing Sophie question why she was in Team Evil, and also seeing Agatha try to do everything she could to assist her and Sophie to go back home. The more the book went on, the more I continued to enjoy it. Then at around the 3/4 mark, I really started to feel the length. There's a reason Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is only 223 pages compared to this over 500-page tome. As the book is middle grade, I docked a star for its length. I think it's a fantastic book and will continue on. I just don't know how Chainani expects children to remember everything when the book is that long. And I honestly feel that that is a very fair complaint to make. You know, maybe it's so that parents can read a chapter a night to their children. But when I was of middle grade age, we don't use the term middle grade in my country of Australia, but when I was of middle grade age, I used to read books myself. My parents read books to me for, I think, the first 3-4 years of my life, and ever since I turned 5 I started reading books myself and am still doing so. And so I think I would have been very overwhelmed if the first book in a series is 500 pages. So that's where my criticism comes in, owing to the experiences I had growing up. I do understand that there are a lot of children out there for many, many ages of their life growing up where parents do read to them. And in that case, it's probably a dream to have a book that's 500 pages long. I just think if a middle grade child is going to pick up a book that is 500 pages long, it might be a little less appealing. From what I can see, there are 3 books, at least in the first arc of this series. And I think that Soman Chainane could have split this up and made it 6 books so that they were shorter. But otherwise, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It's definitely the series being added to my 2025 SAS list, and as I said, I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read was not part of, well, actually, yes, it was part of a series. I was going to say it's not part of a series on my SAS list, but it is. I guess the point that I was going to make, which is true anyway, would have been, even if it wasn't on my SAS list, I was still going to read this because it was part of a SAS list that I would have made up anyway. So, but it is part of my SAS list. So it is book number 2 in the Golden Boys series by Phil Stamper, which is called Afterglow. Now, what I mean by what I was saying a moment ago with all of that, you know, babbling, is that even if this wasn't part of a series, I had a goal to catch up and read every single book that Phil Stamper has ever written. I've now done that, and I am so happy that I have. I gave this book an overwhelming 5 stars. Let's take a look at the premise and my thoughts on book 2 of so far 2 in the Golden Boys series. So, to the premise, after a life-changing summer, these 4 friends are finally ready for senior year. Gabriel is thrilled to create his school's first LGBTIQ+ advocacy group, but his long-distance relationship is fading from summer love to something else. Heath feels secure for the first time in years, but with his future riding on a baseball scholarship, each pitch triggers his anxiety. Reese is set on pursuing a career in fashion design, but his creativity takes him in an unexpected direction he isn't yet ready to share. Sal wants to be in politics, specifically local politics. After a chat with his aunt, he is ready for an unlikely path. As graduation nears and the boys prepare to enter the real world, it feels like everything is changing so fast, including their friendships. Can they find a way to make the most of their senior year, even as they eagerly look ahead to the future? So to my thoughts, oh my gosh, it is going to be so hard to say goodbye. I grew to love all the boys as though they were my friends too, which is full credit to the amazing writer that is Phil Stamper. Heath's journey touched me the most. I think it was because his stakes felt higher to me. They weren't. Everyone's stakes were high, but Heath's one was pretty big. Sal's journey from book 1 to now is arguably the best character arc I've seen in an LGBTIQ+ book in a while. Didn't connect as much with Gabe, which is his nickname, but that's okay. When you connect with everyone else so highly, it's okay to have one character you don't connect with as much. I will say though that his moment at the school was something I truly appreciated, and then there's Reese. Seriously, bless Reese. If Sal's journey was huge, in a way, Reese's was just as huge. I love these characters as though they are my friends, and while I don't expect more books in the series, come on Phil, let's go for book number 3, and I gave it 5 stars. Yeah, absolutely thrilled to finish my final Phil Stamper book that has been released so far. There is no information on any other books that Phil Stamper is writing, if he is at the moment, but even if he isn't, he certainly deserves a break, and I will talk more about this series when I do the 3 times SAS list discussion. But 5 stars for this book. Really loved it, and I hope that there is a third one. The next book that I read is a series favourite of mine, and it helped me to stay and remain up to date with this series that I love so much. It is book number 17, currently, of 17, in the Haley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery Series called Death of a Gingerbread Man, and it is a freaking gorgeous cover. Seriously, there are so many cozy mystery books that I would love to somehow copy the cover of, blow them up to a bigger size, and have them framed, because the covers are just gorgeous. That being said, I went into this book extremely excited. You'll find out why, but I walked away disappointed, much more disappointed than I thought I would be, given it was Haley Powell, and I gave it 3 stars. It's an adult cozy mystery. Let's now look into the premise and my thoughts as to why I gave the book 3 stars. So the premise of this one is it's a killer Christmas in more ways than one in the latest Haley Powell Food and Cocktails mystery set in Bar Harbor, Maine. With the holiday season in full swing, food and cocktails columnist and restaurateur Haley Powell has lots to check off her last-minute to-do list. Not included is the sudden arrival of her father, who hasn't been in the picture since she believed in Santa Claus. Dwight Jordan's presence in Bar Harbor might just be the unwanted gift that keeps on giving, especially after he becomes the top suspect in a case of Yuletide murder. So to my thoughts, I was so very excited to get to this book for 2 reasons. One, it's the next Haley Powell book, and I love this series, and I can't understate that. I love this series. And 2, it's clearly a Christmas-themed book, and I'm all about everything Christmas in books. Sadly, despite both these things, this book left me disappointed. Yes, there were some Christmas things, but it was very minimal. Also, Haley seeing her father was fine, a good event, but then the rest of the book became all about genealogy, which was not interesting for me. The mystery did not intrigue me. The reveal, however, was a good one. All in all, a letdown, as it was a very average read. Yeah, so quickly just to unpack that. As I say, Haley Powell meets her father for the first time since she was a little kid, and that was fantastic. It was a huge surprise. Never thought that would happen in the series, and I did love that. The problem with introducing Haley Powell's father is that it then opened up this whole study in genealogy. Don't get me wrong, there were certain things about that study in genealogy that I did find interesting, but the majority of it just did not interest me at all. So for personal reasons, I docked 2 stars. And also, of course, the Christmas stuff probably amounted to 5%. I go into my cozy mystery books for the cozy side, and so therefore when it looks like the cozy side is Christmas themed, and I love my Christmas themed books, and it's only 5% Christmas, that's gonna let me down too. So those 2 things had me docking 2 stars, because to me it was worth a whole 2-star deduction. 3 stars for this one, but I'll definitely move on to book number 18 when it is released, because overall I do absolutely love this series. But sadly, again, 3 stars for this one. The next book that I read helped me to complete a series that I started a little while ago, prior to 2024, but I finished it this year, and I'm happy that I now have. It is book 6 of 6 in the Immortals series by Alison Noel, and it is called Everlasting. This book, as well as the series, is a YA paranormal/fantasy series leaning on the paranormal side, and I gave this final book 5 stars. So let's talk about the premise and my thoughts of this one. The premise of this one is their darkest enemies now defeated, Damon and Eva are free to embark upon their final quest to free Damon from the poison lingering in his body. If they can just find the antidote, they'll finally be able to feel each other's touch and experience the passionate night they've been longing for. But their fight to be together will lead them into the most formidable terrain yet, into the dark heart of Summerland. So to my thoughts, keeping it spoiler free, I love this series as a whole. However, I remember very distinctly thinking, actually I'll get my exact words, I'm concerned about what the ending means for the future. This is because of what was set up at the end of book 2. When I figured what that when What I figured was that we'd spend the rest of the entire series dealing with this one thing. Boy, was I wrong. And that made me so happy. Yes, this thing takes practically till the end of the series to resolve, but each book between books 2 and 6, no wait, 2 to 6, actually stand on their own quite well. None of them are bogged down in this one thing because, well, we simply don't have the time because so much else goes down in every book. That was enough to satisfy me that Alison Noel is a fantastic author that doesn't rest on her laurels, which she so easily could have done. But then we get the final climax and whoa, I had no clue, none, that it would go down the way it did. Another massive plus for Alison Noel. I'm running out of time in this video, but you can certainly go to Goodreads to check out the remainder of my review on this if you wish. It was a glowing review that I gave Alison Noel. Absolutely love her as an author. Loved this final book. 5 stars from me. As with the Hayley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery series, the next book that I picked up helped me to remain up to date with the series that I love so much. It is the new release, book 8 of 8, in the Secret and Scrabbles, or Secrets and Scrabble, either one, series by Josh Lanyon, and it is called Corpse at Captain's Seat. As I said, book 8 of 8, it is an adult cozy mystery, and I gave this book 5 stars. Let's check in with the premise and my thoughts. So the premise of this one is, at long last, the renovations of stately Captain's Seat are mostly complete. To celebrate, mystery bookseller and sometimes amateur sleuth Ellery Page decides to throw a housewarming party and invite his New York theatre friends to stay for the weekend. When a freak snowstorm leaves the house party cut off from the village of Pirates Cove, there's nothing to do but drink, reminisce, and play games. Or so Ellery thinks, until he finds himself trapped in a real-life game of Clue. So to my thoughts, how wonderful to be back in this world again. I've missed Ellery, Jack, and Watson so much. Not as much of a mystery, but that doesn't matter to me with this series. I'm just happy to be back. Special shout out to audiobook narrator Matt Haynes, who once again, as always, did an amazing job. Truly enjoyable read, and I cannot wait for book number 9. I gave this book 5 stars, and absolutely when book 9 comes out, I will be eagerly anticipating it as I am right now. Cannot wait to get to that. 5 stars for this one. The final book that I read in the month of November helped me to get incredibly close to the end of a series, or to the point in a series I wanted to get to. I'm 1 book away. This was the penultimate book to where I want to be up to. And that is, speaking of the Camper and Criminals series, book number 35, which is called Moonlight, Marshmallows, and Manslaughter. An adult cozy mystery once again by Tonya Kappas this time, and I gave this sadly a rating of 3 stars. Let's check in with the premise and my thoughts. So the premise of this one is Normal, Kentucky is hosting a wildflower festival during National Wildflower Week. The town is full of nature enthusiasts and botanists. However, it didn't take long before things had a dark turn. When one of the botanists that is renowned for her groundbreaking research doesn't show up for her speaking engagement, May goes looking for her. When the botanist is found dead, May is determined to find her killer. To my thoughts, honestly, another average read overall for me. The cozy side revolved around rare flowers, which just isn't my thing. I also think the title was misnamed. It should have been called Flowers, Felons, and Fires or something, and not Moonlight, Marshmallows, and Manslaughter. Either way, the mystery was intriguing, which is why it got more than 2 stars from me. I want to very quickly unpack a couple of things. First of all, the reason why I disagree with the title is because while Moonlight, Marshmallows, and Manslaughter all make an appearance in this book, they're very minimal. What I was recommending, Flowers, Felons, and Fires, took up a much bigger chunk of the book, and I just think it would have made a lot more sense. And the last book wasn't an FFF alliteration title, so I think she could have gotten away with it, but oh well, that is what it is. The study of rare flora and fauna is just not something that appeals to me. In saying that, I think that preserving nature is an important thing, and I find flora and fauna to be a beautiful thing. It's just the subject matter doesn't appeal to me, and because of that I docked 2 stars. But the mystery was absolutely fantastic. The disappointing thing about giving this book 3 stars is that the average rating for all 35 books that I've read so far is 5 star. Got confused there, is 3 stars. So that is rather disappointing, but I have one more book left that I promised myself to get to, which is book 36, and I'll be reading 36 and 37 in December. And now for everyone's favourite game that we like to call Up. These are all the books I spoke about in my November monthly wrap video. What books did you read in the month of November? What was your favourite? Let me know in the comments section below. Remember that now that we're in December, I'm going into my favourites and non-favourites for the year. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. But by subscribing, hit that bell and the all symbol, or the all section, so that you can ensure that you'll be notified each and every time I do upload one of those favourites and non-favourite videos. In the meantime, I'm going to let you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do be kind and love one another, and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, happy reading! Season's greetings, everyone! Bye!